Thank you for the introduction. This is Stephen from CSC, and China Chinopharma is a distribution company for Chinese market, and we are focusing on introducing the Indian APIs to China market for many years. And I'm very happy today that I can have the opportunity to introduce our experience to our Indian partners and friends. So my speech is majorly on the requirements and the practical procedures of the import drug registration in China, and it is consists four parts: the Indian API advantages, and for our Indian friends how to better enter Chinese market, as well as for the drug registration regulatory requirements and the audits. So let's start with the first one. The understanding of advantages of Indian APIs, what we are talking about there, because there are large numbers of Indian companies that have the US FDA and the EDQM approvals, means the regulated market approvals. Such market is having high recognition of Indian generic uh, drugs. At present, there are more than 500, there are more than 500 Indian pharmaceutical companies is having FDA approvals with more than 2,600 products. Approximately, there are 900 FDA approved drugs and APIs can be exported to US, which, as well as they are having the CEPs in EU. So what we can say is the Indian manufacturers are having a very good, solid foundation of approvals to do the business in China. The second is the specification, because based on the above illustration, because the filing are so many as per EP and USB, which we are understanding it is the general pharmacopoeia. So the Indian pharmaceutical companies may have many years of production experience and the quality assurance system. So they can ensure that they are producing high quality of products for exporting to China. The third one is the cost advantages. With the Indian medicine grade production management, the labor cost, as well as the strong technology support. But most important, I think, is the entire system backup, equipped with the talents, with the the good technology-oriented environment, make a very strong basement on the cost-effective part of the Indian drugs. The fourth point is the supply. Despite of the COVID right now, we can say that the supply from India, it is comparatively more stable than the other continents. The registration of the Indian APIs has been exported to all the world market. So the stableness of the supply has to be there. Basically, the production is about to appear, and occasionally the stocks are out of stock. However, we were thinking that preparing a certain amount of inventory in advance, that is a mandatory gesture as of now. The fifth point is the talking about the advantages in the consistency evaluation, which we understand that it is a big task for the local formulators in China to do this QCE. And most of the time, the benchmark is the reference listed drug. So because according to the DMF document, there are many standardized market formulations that have been approved for using the Indian API. So it will be definitely be more convenient to use the same API that has passed the original research and comparison formulations in the consistency evaluation. So this, I think it will be greatly help the Chinese manufacturers to enter into the international market. Chinese companies has an increasing demand for their products to be approved in the regulated market like EU and the US, and there was a need for more higher quality APIs, which have already been in the same market, and other formulation customer has been registered their formulation with those APIs. To enter the Chinese market, we need to understand what is the point, or what are the problems this market is facing. So that can be our opportunities. So here I have a small chapter about what we are facing. First of all, the environmental protection policies and the supervision are becoming stricter and stricter. That everybody knows that in the southeast coast of China, there was a lot of pressure on the environmental, as well as the few cases of the blaster in the last 2 years. The government has been putting on really strict policy. So there was a lot of shortage or even shutdown of the production of the raw material, including the API. Secondly, also because of the point one, the control of limits supplying the API in the market has been becoming more and more cases in China market. So as a result, the qualified API cannot be sold, and the qualified formulator cannot get a good API source. It becoming a big issue. CSE as a distributor, we are also receiving a lot of inquiries from our formulator customers that they need a stable and a long-term API partner for the specific products. Thirdly, the quality need to be improved. What we understand, it is the same point of the higher specification. Although in 2015 the CP monograph has been updated, but still there was a lot of parameters we need to be improved in terms of quality of the local APIs. So for the import APIs, the specification are most of the time they are consists all the general pharmacopoeia parameters. So this is a big advantage we can have towards the local Chinese APIs. The fourth one is the comparatively weaker innovation capabilities. What we can understand is the new drug NCE and the new ways of developing a new medicine. The strength China is having is still comparatively weaker than the other countries like India, especially on the generic. So this is for the new drug, for the new generation developing molecules and introducing into China market, that can be a good opportunity. Then we can see that how we can do this job in China. Both China and India have the characters of being a very big country of the generic drugs. But you know, in terms of the products can be selected to enter Chinese market may reflect into the following aspects. The first one, the Indian products has a big strength in technology and manufacture, such as all the PPIs, the Prozos. Secondly, the products local companies cannot pass the QCE, but Indian companies have launched the products in the regulated market for many years. There are there are more than 2,000 of these kind of products. On the one hand, China is carrying out the work that all the markets formulation should be consistent with the efficiency of the innovator, starting with the basic drug list, what we all also understand it is essential drug list, and then complete them by category. Due to the time limit, heavy tasks, and the high clinical requirements, the Chinese pharmaceutical companies are currently pretty busy with the corresponding work of the QCE for the basic drugs. On the other hand, the highest regulatory authority of China FDA has been issued the policy that recognize the clinical data in other countries with strict management of the drugs. So we believe that the Indian products can enter the regulated market. It will be providing a very excellent quality with greater cost advantages. So I personally believe that this policy may create more opportunities for the Indian pharmaceutical companies. The third is the products with the insufficient competition from the Chinese market. There are about 200 of these kind of products, such as a single and compound formulation products such as protamine sulfate and metamazole. So this is for some understanding of how to enter the Chinese market. Here we are having two small suggestions. Is the first one is try to avoid enter Chinese market with the high volume uh, products. The main reason is the existing competition in China is already fierce, and by having the entity or as import drug, the import tariff and the VAT is the mandatory cost that we need to have. So when the local the local API manufacturers are already compete in a very big way for the big volume products. So it is suggested to avoid such. Secondly, to pay attention to the regional culture. For example, the products with the huge volume in the Western countries, but it does not mean that it will be selling well in the Eastern countries like India and China. Such a treatment, say for example, like Alzheimer's or the urine disorders, the molecule like sulfenacin, it is well sold and having a very good market in the Western countries. But in the Eastern countries like India and China, it is not there that great performance. However, we are saying that the situation it is also dynamically changed with the increasing of numbers of patients with Alzheimer's. There was also increased demand of the corresponding medical treatment, so which is also recently happened. By entering one market, we need to have the right strategy. And these are the 4 points I would like to share with our Indian friends. The first one is the level of branding. Maybe it is a little bit confusing, but what I'm trying to say is we need to recognize ourselves at a very reasonable level of player in the market. The It is recommended that the Indian pharmaceutical companies that had just entered the Chinese market, the first position they need to have is between the China's first class level and the second class level. Because as a common sense, each and every country, the people are all treated as the innovators molecule products will be the top brand, top level. And in China, most of the patients believe that the second level are the generic companies or drugs from the EU and US and Japan. Then the then it goes to the local company, which has a big reputation and a big branding like Yangtze River, like Henry, like Hausen. The manufacturers need also making the choices about each market expectations. The Chinese market has a huge consumer group, which means there's a big population. So as far as any product is concerned, the China may have the largest group of consumers in the world. But in terms of price, the Chinese market cannot afford higher, very premium price. So after investing a lot of time and money to complete the special requirements from NMPA, it is very understood for many manufacturers who will be more eager to recover the cost of input. But it is not recommended in the early stage of the market promotion because we would like to take back the money we have been invested in the beginning. But here I comes to the second point is the long-term vision. The right strategy is to create more business positions with longer vision and recover the investments to make profits post commercialization. Because in China, as well as in the other corners of the world, to have the position in supplying chain of the formulators is the key part of the business. And just now I have mentioned that all the formulators are pretty busy with the QCE, and they might not have the time and energy to do extra work, at least in the recent few years. So it is very important for the manufacturers to enter the market, to enter the supply chain of the formulation. And in the beginning, the pricing and the volume may not be attractive, but we need to have the long-term vision to planning for the next 5 years, what can be happen and what can be gained as to take back the investment as well as making profits. Taking a widely vision, these registration requirements actually, just now I was talking about there are always extra or special requirements from NMPA. So these requirements will be, we believe, it will be the requirements from other authorities in the next 5 years. Then the study of these registration requirements in China now can be very much utilized by that time, which means that will be saving you a lot of time and cost by that time. So the huge volume of the Chinese market can well support the manufacturers. The other point, to upgrade your industry capability and expanding your production capability, the reducing production cost greatly, and the manufacturer can becoming more competitive in all the other markets. We're having a lot of life examples that our partners used to not as the strongest in, say for example, in Europe, but by having the volume and business in China, they have been scaled up and upgrade their production capability, and now they are number one in Europe. The third point is to choose the right sales method. We suggested that to entering Chinese market, to work with a exclusive agent, it's the most appropriate business model. The major reasons are to avoiding the disrupting of the order established by the manufacturer and lowering the brand image, reducing the workload of the managing multiple agents. Secondly, the exclusive agent can better making sales strategies and long-term plans for the market. And most important is the motivation. They will be having the desire to invest more resources in the market because they know they can get the fruit back. The understanding of the family, relatives, and the friendship, it is our culture in Asia. So which makes the drug suppliers in the regional market, say for example, any of the towns or small countries, are relatively very stable. So dealing with those distribution of benefits and friendship with the local person is very important. And also, we understand the prediction is that the exclusive agency partner needs to be having a very strong capability in registration and the sales strength. So here comes to my last point is choose the right partner. Actually, this is the question has been always asked by the beginning of evaluating one market and whom should be I'm working with. And it is also a matter of opinion among the different people. I mean, thousands people can have 2,000 kinds of answers. So here, the key point we understand to examine the capability of potential partners is the result. Because no matter how good they describe, the results that does not change. The numbers of approved molecules in an NMPA and market performance of those products can be very well reflected in the agent's attitude. First of all, it is attitude, whether they want to do the business. Secondly, it is the capabilities. How many of the approvals they have been successfully get for its partner, and whether how much market share they have got for their partners. So here, the third chapter is talking about the regulatory affairs. After completing of the advantage of the Indian drugs and the problems we are having in Chinese market, and how to, illustrate the right strategy to enter Chinese market, the regulatory affairs part might be now the most challenging work. First of all, it is about the time because the complaints are really strong in the last 5 years, while or 10 years back, while the NMP and the CDE is having pretty long queuing time and reviewing time. They have been invested a lot of resources in this part, and we have to say that the results has been remarkable. I still remember by the time 2012 to 2015, the numbers of reviewers in CDE, it's only hardly 110 or 120, and right now there were more than 700. So numbers of reviewers have been increased, so that will be helping a really, fast speed of the review. The overdue registration applications has been cleaned up in 2016 and basically completed by the end of 2017. Of course, there was a lot of different approaches, but the result is by having the application done, we can expecting approximately 1 year time to receiving the feedback. So the time has been really reduced in this fact. Secondly is the specification. China requires the quality standards of the import drugs are not lower than the general pharmacopoeia, and as well as the approved specification in the market. The purpose of this applying this specification is better protecting the people's safety. So I believe that from the perspective of patients and the government, everyone can understand it. Thirdly, the expectation from NMPA, and I'm focusing on the few points of the import drugs. Point number one, the local agent has to be appointed for the easy communication. Actually, it is also regulated as in the latest law that the import manufacturer has to appoint one legal entity in China to represent the overseas manufacturers for all the corresponding responsibilities and the risks. Secondly, the regional requirements should be strictly followed. The stringent controls should be adopted irrespective of the CP pharmacopoeia. This is also one point may not be that easy to understand, because when our Indian friends are filed their DMFs and dossiers in EU, we can purely following EP. When we are filing it in US, we can purely following USB. But in China, CP is not the only one. So that I will explain more detailed in the later chapter. The supply of samples and documentation support during the sample verification. It is very often for the officers who doing the specification verification, they are asking for impurities, they are asking for standards, and sometimes they are asking for columns. So this kind of support, because the government activities, we need to satisfy, we need to support them. The fifth point is cooperation from supplier during the port inspection and sampling. And also the extension of the US DMF and the CEP to Chinese markets sometimes cannot be considered, because there are a lot of thought process. I have done the filing in EU in EDQM. I already have the CEP, but how can NMPA asking such kind of questions? So this is a quite understandable, but we need to understand this is not the expectation from NMPA. The safety of the dossier, it is also coming back to the manufacturer's point of view. NMPA and the CD has improved a lot since 2008 for the reviewing and approving, and now they are having pretty good system, and with such mechanism included safety management for the dossier submitting by the manufacturers by us, Indian friends can be rest assured on that, because they are having a parallel review, which means the different officers can in the same group for one molecule review, not all of them can review the entire set. And the evaluation results or the comments will be accumulated to the final officer who is making the final judgment. So that creates the confidentiality control of the reviewing. And also the specific reflection are China now it is also a ICH member. So there were a lot of things we can following as per ICH guideline. The next chapter is I would like to share is some of the key requirements from NMPA, followed by there will be some special requirements. So the key requirements are as follows. The data integrity. The submitted chromatograms are false. It is not. It is a big issue. If when it is discovered in such a case, it might be of the direct cancellation of the registration or the application. Second, now everybody knows that the reaction steps has to be 3 steps. So if it is only 1 step, purification, it is not recognized as 1 step. It is also not saying that we have to have 3 steps for each and every molecule. Depends on the complexity of the structure from the compound. We can also understand if it is a single step and the KSM and the intermediate level are well controlled with all the related substance, then it might be also can be recognized as approved, even it is having less than 3 reaction steps. The storage condition. The CP monograph and other pharmacopoeia, the biggest difference is the I'm taking example of room temperature. In CP, it is 30, and in other pharmacopoeia, it might be 25. So it creates the the differences. So it comes to the storage condition. We need to have the stability data in the proper way, and making the label and the data in the DMF as per the local requirements, which is CP requirements. So the mismatching part will be creating a big challenge. And the other one is the mismatching of the storage condition from the of the product from the manufacturer, maybe 2 to 8, which is a cold chain. But in CP, in the local requirements, it is room temperature. So in this kind of condition, it is not suggested to file with cold chain storage condition in China. So because the officer will be saying, will be thinking that why you need the cold chain storage, because if you are putting in the room temperature, maybe it is not stable. So it will be creates a lot of imagination on the quality of the products. The isomers. Here I have a example that one product is having 2 cryocenters, but there is no suitable method to control the isomer in the manufacturing and the storage of the product from the starting material. The process from the starting material study, process study, and the quality study and the stability. The important quality control parameter is missing during the quality control steps and stability test. So actually, it is our one of the cases we have been receiving the rejection from the CDE only because of this isomer issue. The fifth part actually it is the I would say it is the drafting mistakes, because the first chapter and the final chapter it is not a matching itself, so we call it is a logic mismatching of the content. The sixth part is the structure elucidation. So because there were a lot of study like UV, XRD, TG, DSC, the structure of elucidation is the one of the major focus from NMPA. We need to pay really attention to it. The AMV, the key part is because everybody will do the AMV on the final product. But how about the intermediates? And sometimes the requirements can extend to the KSMs. That creates the challenge. But it is the key requirements from an NMPA because they cannot come in for the audit for each and every application. So they are that is the reason they are having so high and so detailed control of the method of the intermediates and the KSMs. The last one is the common requirements of GTI. Uh, if we need to study and control the potential genotoxic impurities based on the manufacturing process, so it is a mandatory from ICH. It is also the major requirements from the NMPA. Then we go to some special requirements from NMPA. The first one goes to BPR, or we can say BMR. We can say it is not mandatory from other authorities, as per my knowledge, US and EU, that you can submit or you can choose not to submit, because BPR is the most confidential documents from the manufacturer. But in China, for all the APIs, the BPR should be provided. The second point is the EMV for the pharmacopoeia method. So it is coming back to this logic is the method from pharmacopoeia. Why it is from the pharmacopoeia means it is already proved. It is very useful. But why the EMV still need to be conducted again? So the manufacturer will be thinking it is a repeated action, which involves a lot of time and cost. But this is most of the case. The CDE will be asking for the EMV even for the pharmacopoeia method. With regarding to the solution to these special requirements, we can have a different discussion. The third point is the affecting factor testing. It is different from the degradation test. Actually, degradation test is only one of the affection factors. There are also high temperature, high humidity, and photo stability. So these are something which is different from other countries' registration. The fourth point is the comparison study with the innovators. It is very easy to understand to do the formulation comparison with the innovators, but how come you can ask me to compare the API with the innovators, because the innovators API may not be available? So I mean, at least Right now, it is coming from the documentation and regulation. It is one of the requirements. Once again, how to solve this particular issue that we can get into a more studied detailed discussion later. The fifth information is on the case starting materials. For the audit reports of the outsourced KSMs, including the audit plan, audit reports, control of KSMs, detailed manufacturing process, in-house specs, related substance, specified impurities, unspecified impurities. So we can say now the focus of KSMs from CDE is becoming the relevant requirements, and the level of control on KSMs, it is as good as on the final API product. So whether it is a in-house or outsourced KSMs, the information need to be complete to provide to the NMPA for registration purpose. The last point is the change management. From 2020, last year, January, the annual report system was implemented, which brings a great difficulties to the manufacturers. The reason being, in the past, I would say maybe in the past 20 years, there was no systematic change submission was done. And we can imagine the accumulated changes are so many, which cannot be completed one time due to many reasons. The implementation of QCE also creates the difficulty. The formulator is not willing to accept any change from the API before they are getting the approved QCE or the new application, because those changes might affect the major change, and might be they need to redo the BE, which is a big loss. Under such situation, the distributor's role is pretty important to balance the demand from the manufacturer as well as from the customer, and fix the difficulties from both ends. In our case, CSE is having 75 plus approved molecules. So actually, we are having a very big challenge last year, because we need to conducting all the annual reports as well as the change control submission for all those 75 approved molecules. We're having a fruitful experience in handling such issues. So this is about the regulatory part. The last part of my speech is on the audit, which is, I would say, it is a comparatively still new that NMPA can come for the audit, and so what they were looking at and how they conducting this audit. First of all, the everybody can see in the PPT, it is a process of the audit, which I would say it is more or less all the same with other processes. But there are a few key points. The audit is conducted in Chinese language. The applicator is responsible for the translation and the verification of translation accuracy, which means because most of the Indian and Western countries are English-speaking countries, so when you are doing the translation, even the English express is correct, but if the translation into Mandarin or Chinese is not accurate, because the final recognized language is Chinese, so the manufacturer need to be also responsible for the mistakes in translation. There were several directive fail cases where there were genuine problems, including the inconsistency between the product quality and the registration dossiers, about serious defects without proper rectification measures, infeasible rectification plan, and others failing to meet the requirements in the laws and the regulations, as well as technical specifications identified during the audit. Of course, last point, uncooperative situation encountered during the inspection, that it will be, and in each and every country, it will be lead to the fail conclusion. Delay the inspections more than 2 times, or delay, refuse, or cover up the critical informations. So here I have prepared a distributing chart of the major points. We can see the missing data and the records consist the maximum percentage of the major observations or defects. It is from the 2017 overseas inspections from NMPA. So here we come to the major contents of the on-site audit. The first one is GMP compliance. Chinese GMP is the same as European GMP, not as any other. When responding to the inspectors about the compliance of GMP, the explanations needs to be based on the actual documents and proof in written. I'm repeating here, to responding by saying this is how we do to comply FDA ETQM, it won't help. Plus needs to have the Chinese GMP guide, Chinese pharmacopoeia, such relevant laws and regulations, documents on site. We need to prepare for it. Second point is the DMF consistency. Consistency means complete, consistent to the one submitted to the NMPA. The inspectors will use the DMF that was submitted pre-inspection to check against all the details. So any changes that is based on the customer request also needs to be included in the DMF files. The third point is the data integrity. The data integrity is the foundation of the drug life cycle specification system. The extent to which all data are complete and consistent and accurate throughout the data life cycle. The sequence of the stages that a particular unit of data goes through from its initial generation or capture to its eventual retrieval or deletion at the end of its use life, from R&D stage to production. So it needs to satisfy the ALCOA principle that everybody knows. The last point is the quality and the manufacturing management. All the documents that the inspectors ask needs to be provided within an appropriate time window, which means sometimes we may not have those documents, but it is not suggested to say that I will provide you in 2 days, and 2 days later we are submitting all those documents. So it will be very weird in front of the inspectors if there was there was no such documents, or there was an irrelevant justification has been provided. It is not suggested. All the changes, second point is all the changes need to be validated and researched sufficiently based on the ICH guidelines. Of course, the multiple OS out of specification needs to be investigated immediately. So this is the last chapter, and this is also the end of my speech today. And as a conclusion, I would like to say that because the medicines and drugs are consumed by the patients, so India and China has the biggest population in the world. Chinese market will be expanded with the developing strength of the country, especially focusing on the human life and healthcare from the existing government. More approvals will be there, which makes China market become bigger. To utilizing the advantages from India and China at different developing stage and maximizing the advantages from the Indian pharma companies to enter earlier and more aggressively into China market. So we believe that it will be a bright future for both countries' industries as well as for the benefit of the manufacturers. Thank you.